Welcome to The Point. And here you are enjoying the week before Christmas, right? That's right. It is really an amazing week and an amazing year. How many people are experiencing a level of warmth and a level of difference in what's happening in the climate? It's hard to believe for many of you that you made it through Thanksgiving and all the way towards this week without a whole lot of snow. Some of you up in the mountains, everything else have had a lot, but many areas that typically get a lot of snow by now just haven't. So in Arizona, there hasn't been any snow. Imagine that, Scottsdale without snow yet. Okay, so what's this week about? You ask, and the answer is delivered. This week is short and sweet and to the point. It's been a beautiful week here to ride and to get out in the sun and the open. And it's still been chilly enough for a jacket. And we're just going to jump out here today and get this done. So what's the point? What's the point now, right? You've been really earnestly finding ways to maximize the end of year and the beginning of the new year. And it's been a lot of fun. And what's going to be even more fun is when you see the results in the new year and you're ahead of the game and all that other stuff. Guess what happens for you when you've been that proactive, that intentional, and that goal-oriented, is that you get to rest and relax and be at peace and comfort with your family. You know, integrity is an important thing. And one of the reasons it's so important is because you, being full of integrity, get to live an easier life because there's nothing to worry about remembering. You know, when honesty is a part of integrity, honesty can also be a value all on its own. But when we're living in an integral set of values with integrity, it's easier to live. There's nothing to hide. There's still appropriate boundaries and things we would talk about or not talk about or disclose or not disclose to all the right people. There's things that are sacred about you that you will hold in and use sparingly and specifically because it's your gifting, it's your gold coins. And now we're stepping into this week. If you celebrate Christmas or not, you're walking into a week of vacation time, of schools coming out, not being in school anymore, and families coming together. With Christmas and the new year, you're going to have more opportunities to enjoy yourself. If you're not spending time with family, you're spending time with people you choose to spend time with. If you're on your own, if you're by yourself this holiday, you can relax by yourself, and you could go and volunteer and get involved in the community and do something really positive to be of benefit to others. Whatever you are choosing for this holiday, you get to be present. When you're considering your goals on a much bigger level, you know your values on a more intimate level, you get to benefit from really living and being in the moment, appreciating and enjoying the moment. It's simple. It's not easy necessarily, but it's simple to detach from the feelings and memories from the past and focus on the lessons, focus on what's been learned. So here's some hints and tips for the week. Here's some hints and tips of how to be with family and eliminate the need for triggers. So the few things that you're going to learn here today and that you're going to be able to really consider on a deeper level is, one, what are your triggers? And number two is shifting the value of the triggers, any triggers you have, and turning them into a trigger for some certain action that will benefit you and those you're around. Traditionally, you may think of a trigger And you may say, oh, a trigger is now I'm emotional, now I'm a wreck, now I'm a whatever. And if you're here listening or watching to this podcast, you're safe, you're healthy, you're listening, which means you're focusing on positive and improvement and good. So you are already in the right place and ahead of the game. Now, if you're really thinking about a trigger, and the idea is that a trigger is something that pushes you into an uncomfortable place or a zone, think of something. Think of the idea that what if it were a trigger to recognize the lesson from whatever it is that pops in our minds that causes the trigger? What if nothing else, the number one thing you can do when you feel a trigger is to stop? Now, I used to say pause a lot. A great client, this client I so appreciate working with, decided to use the word delay instead of pause because they wanted to stay at choice. And the word delay meant something different for them than pause. So to delay gave them a little extra time to really consider what their actions were going to be from the trigger. And the purpose of making a delay or a pause is for you to take the time to observe what you were thinking, what you were feeling, and what's happening that's causing those thoughts and feelings, and then making a choice to learn from those feelings. Now, if you understand and you're clear that a feeling is a delivery mechanism for a message that's meant for you to be more proactive, then you're ahead of the game. If you haven't considered that, that's a place to start and consider. What is the message this is delivering to me? What is the lesson that's being brought to the table? Now, there's a handful of questions you can ask yourself, but start this week with just observing. And rather than digging into anything during the holiday season and just in the spirit of being present and positive, you can think of a few things. One, notice anything you can find intentionally that you agree with, that you think is correct or right, that you resonate with. So a little different for you if you're agreeing or resonating on some level. You might it's just, for some people that can be very different. And for others, it can be a little different. It is what it is for you. That's what you get to consider. So look for things that you agree with. Look for where other people are right. Look for things they're doing that are kind, that are positive. Anytime you feel a trigger from something different, notice it, pay attention to it. What's the thought process? What are all the things? And reconnect to something you can have in common. If you're in disagreement and you're noticing things that you're not in common, find something you can be in common with. Maybe it's the weather. You can both agree on the weather. Now, some people might say, and you might say, that makes things way too surfaced. You don't have to make it surfaced. You could make it about being in the moment as opposed to being just surfaced. Now, you can allow that to build a bridge to other things that you have in common. You could even notice and mention, wow, we agree that the weather is comfortable, or that the weather is beautiful, or whatever, or it's raining, or whatever it is. Notice and even mention that you can agree and affirm that there are other things that you can agree with. Now, you're smart and you know what environments you can easily bring up different conversations. Whether or not politics and religion and other things are safe at a big family gathering where a lot of people are coming together, your family might be perfectly okay with those conversations and your family may not. You already know the answer to those questions and what conversations to step into or step out of or avoid or stay quiet. What happens if you're disagreeing with a lot that's going on? And I'm going to say nothing. If you're able to breathe and hold your own space. Now, I will share that something important for you to know, right? And you will know this clearly. You will be able to act with this moving forward. And this holiday season, as you're sitting with groups of people, you will be able to express this and experience this. Now, the person in the room, the person in the conversation with the strongest emotional frame wins in the ultimate feel of the room, the ultimate zone that the room, the ultimate energy that we might sit in will be according to the strongest emotional frame in the room. So if you want to be that strongest emotional frame, you can breathe into calm and peace. You can breathe into positive words of influence, encouragement, redirecting conversations if needed. Even if you are not the strongest emotional frame and someone else is because they get upset or they do something else that seems or appears in the moment to be the strongest emotional frame in the moment, you can notice that when that strongest emotional frame is expressed, what happens in the room, what the feelings and the sensations are, and how that affects conversations and the appearance of people's comfort. You can see this, witness this, and stay attuned to it. And if in the long run, your emotional frame is strongest, as an outburst mellows down or sorts out, guess what energy takes the lead? It's the energy that you get to portray and be in. There is absolutely no judgment, no shame. There is nothing but joy. Everything can be joy in the expression and gaining of awareness as these things happen. A couple of great tips for you if you find yourself less able to calm and to stay at peace. You can try breathing in a way where your exhale is longer and more sustained than your inhale. One way to do this is to breathe in 4-4-8 cycles. So you breathe 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, and 8 seconds out. So twice as long of an exhale than is an inhale, and you can hold at the top. You can also hold at the bottom. The point being that you exhale longer than you inhale, and that's a calming sense of breath. Some people might just breathe in and out, so you can choose to breathe in and out without a pause or a hold. You can just breathe in for 3 seconds, out for 6 seconds. Now, if that's not entirely working, do something with your hands. I was taught, and one thing that I saw and witnessed and learned was that if I was upset, and I learned this from my stepfather, he would do dishes every holiday, every time the family came together. And for him, it was his safe space. When everyone else was talking, and in his opinion, some nonsense was being shared, he would go to the sink and do the dishes and pay attention to what he was doing on a tactile sense and zone in and stay out of trouble in his mind. So you can do something with your hands. You might think of a tune. So depending on how you process, and if you want to learn more about processing styles, you can do that. Reach out, send an IM, and you'll get answers back with some ways to find out what your processing styles are. Either way, regardless of your processing style, you can use something with your hands, because when you do something with your hands and you're paying attention to what you're doing, it's bringing you into that visceral moment, whether you're tactile or not. So do something and focus on it. And that can really help you stay back in the moment, get back in the moment, stay in the moment, and then feel and experience and express the emotional frame that you wish to express in that environment, and find a loving space for the people around you, regardless of the environment they may be contributing to or creating. So What's the zone here this year? If you've done your work, if you've been intent on strengthening yourself, strengthening the end of a year, the end of a season, the closing out of a section of time where you can use as a benchmark for progress in your life, you've come in grips and in touch with the ideations that there's always something to work on. There's always something to get better at. So there's no longer a need or an issue for you to avoid thinking of anything that you could improve on. It's a game changer, right? You learn from watching this podcast, you've learned that it's okay to create a baseline to grow from, and you've witnessed and seen growth. You've witnessed and seen changes that are positive, and you've been affected by it in a great way. Now, all of that being true, you get to be that much intently in the moment when you're in the process of loving others. So a question to ask as you walk into these next few weeks: put aside everything else. The recommendation, the suggestion is to put down all of it. Know that you've been doing the work and that you've done the work necessary for an amazing life and an amazing start to the next year, and that there's all good ahead of you, right? It's going to be good, or it's going to be great, or it's going to be even greater. That's the mode, the zone that we're in. And allow that to be good. Allow that to be accepted and done. And breathe into the moments and enjoy them and experience them and express yourself. This is the time to experience maintaining and holding your emotional frame in the midst of triggers and family and groups of people that you're not always around. It's a time to practice strengthening your ability to hold your emotional frame and be the person you want to be in other people's lives. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make today or in this next few weeks is to walk into a situation and start thinking about how you want to be treated and what you experience from others. It's okay to know that you might be treated in all kinds of ways, but the question for you is, who do you want to be in other people's lives? What influence, what impact, what type of emotional frame do you want to have? Do you want to be expressing to others? Ninja gratitude, this intense gratitude that we teach and that we talk about, that you get to experience. Intense gratitude delivered to this visceral level of expression in our movements, expression in our thoughts, expression in our words to others, gets to answer these questions and help you understand who you get to be for other people. Because that's what's going to benefit you the most. How other people treat you has no bearing, only if you allow it. So look at what you agree with others. Look for what the people that are acknowledging you and lifting you up. Create more moments noticing those things. They're almost always happening consecutively, even if it's in the smallest of ways. Notice those smallest of ways and put to test the idea that what you focus on will grow. Because if you focus on the other things, rather than allowing them to be triggers to go into a place of observation and noticing, if you do that, then you can be safe from allowing those unwanted things to grow, and your emotional resourcefulness can stay intact and attuned to what you want to create for yourself and for others. So it's a shift of how you can think about things so that you stay present and no longer end up, if any of you have ever ended up in a situation where it's like, well, if you hadn't said that or done that, I'd have been better. I wouldn't have yelled, or I wouldn't have this, or I wouldn't have whatever. I wouldn't have retracted and gone silent and sat and just done nothing, or watched TV, or read something, or walked away. You don't ever have to have an excuse or a reason for a behavior again if you get to consider what emotional frame do you want to keep regardless of what surroundings you have. So this is a great time of year to practice, because when you're out in the world, impacting the world in the way you want to as a leader in business or in anything, in your family or in any other arena that you're in, you will be faced with enough opportunities, and this is great practice around people that you know and you've had a longer history with and that you care about. So this year, rest on the gifts of the work that you've done. Rest on the knowledge that the behaviors you are leading with in your daily practices are absolutely going to glean or going to deliver all the things that you want in life. And that means that most of the problems that would be there if we were distracted, right? If you're distracted and if you're focused on outside things outside yourself and worried about how those things affect you, right? If that's happening, there's more drama, there's more issue, there's all these things. You get to avoid all of that, all of those cycles. And if they present themselves, you get to observe, gain awareness, and learn from them. So practice that this year and see what amazing gifts you can pull from all of your experiences and your environments. And more importantly than anything, think mostly about who and how you choose to be in what you express into the world, and make it a better place. Make the people around you better people by breathing, speaking, acting in kind, positive ways, regardless of whatever goes on around you. Maintain your emotional frame and your emotional stance and practice. Practice and find and take it for the proving, and you will gain more than you can imagine. My wish for you and my hope for you is that you will gain in great abundance this holiday season. Over this next week, as you walk towards Christmas, you will think more about how you can affect others and what you can give to others than you think about yourself, and that you protect yourself and maintain the strongest emotional frame in the room in a kind, positive, and loving way that just absolutely delivers abundance to your life. We will see you next week. I'm so appreciative that you're here. So grateful for your comments and for the discussions and the conversations that we're getting into. The people that you're starting to see affected in your lives, appreciate it. And the feedback's headed your way. The feedback's headed your way that they're excited that you're acting differently and they're beginning to notice it. So Merry Christmas to all of you that celebrate, and we'll see you before the new year.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of The Point with me, Jeff Spikes. The greatest compliment you could give me is liking, loving, and sharing this episode with all your friends. So please, if you're on Spotify, iHeart, or iTunes, leave a 5-star rating and review. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Make sure to tag me. I love hearing from you, the listeners of this show. The links for all my social and iTunes are in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to engage with me in anything related to my coaching, consulting, speaking, or programs, please visit jeffspikes.com for everything you would need to know to engage with me offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Point.